You're listening to the Radical Transformation Speaker Salon, hosted by Nicole Harlow. 4 days worth of transformational interviews, meditation, and surprises designed to rock your world and change your life. Your year of soul discovery and wild metamorphosis starts today.
Hey everyone, Nicole Harlow here. Today I'm speaking with Jessica Del Grande. She's a nutritionist over at flutterandwownutrition.com. That's flutterandwownutrition.com. She says she can help you change your life, but food is the first step. Eating well doesn't have to be hard. You've got better things to do than spend your time thinking about what to eat, so stop trying to figure this all out by yourself. You can be healthy and in control and still have a blast on pizza night. I could not agree more. Jessica is a nutritionist working with clients all over the world to redefine nutrition. She believes it's possible to eat well, look good, and love your life. All you need is a solid framework with the right tools and the support to integrate them with the things that already work for you. Nutrition is her jam. You just keep doing what you're doing and she'll work with you to create a nutritional plan that brings your life together and makes everything better. So let's jump right into my conversation with Jessica. So how did you get into the work that you're doing now? Was there a point when you knew that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? So like a lightning bolt moment, or did you kind of gradually move into it?
I'd say I gradually moved into it, although I think what really happened is I was interested in nutrition. And I had a lot of health stuff going on, and I was trying to figure it out. I had a whole bunch of testing done from my family doctor, from a naturopath. I went to a whole bunch of different practitioners, and they couldn't really figure out what was going on. And finally, they, through some blood work they had to push and push and push for them to do, they found out that my hormones were totally out of whack.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up, I was on medication for them, and I was seeing 3 or 4 different practitioners, and the thing I kept coming back to was why do I have to keep spending money every month? So these people can help me. What can I do to help myself? And they had all said, well, you can, change your diet and eat in a different way, but none of them were experts.
Right.
So I had to figure out my own thing. I decided to go back to school to just to become my own expert, because no one could help me. And so my ultimate goal was really to work in nutrition and to help other people with the same issues that I had. And it's kind of only in the last year, I guess, where I'm I guess what I'm doing is actually really entrepreneurial. Because if someone had said to me, do you want to be an entrepreneur? My answer would be absolutely not.
Right.
It's the thought of hustling to run a business. Something about the term entrepreneur it never really resonated with me, and I was never really comfortable with it. And I think that now that I've been working in nutrition because I've been doing it for about 5 years and full time for about a year. I'm okay, I guess what I'm doing is entrepreneurial, but really, I don't have a passion for business. I have a passion for nutrition and helping people.
Yeah.
So I did really kind of fall into entrepreneurship because I didn't want to work for anyone else. I don't want to be out of a clinic where I see someone else taking 40 or 50% of what I make.
Right.
And I know that I can help people within the structure that I have. And I don't want to have to justify that to an employer and to explain how or why it works. I'd rather justify it to my clients and have them experience the change for themselves.
Yeah, I like that. So when you started, after you got your testing done and you started using like food, food as medicine. Were you eating badly before? Like, or did you eat badly as a kid? Like, what was your diet like when you were growing up, or when you were like, maybe in your early adulthood, like young 20s or something like that?
Well, so growing up, like my mom totally did the best that she could, but she never has liked to cook. She doesn't enjoy being in the kitchen. Food is not her thing. So she would sort of look at the main food groups and make sure she's hit them. So actually, I shouldn't say that. We didn't really eat vegetables.
Yeah, neither did I.
The vegetables, like there were a lot of carbohydrates because they were inexpensive. And so I ate a lot of bread and pasta, really.
Yeah.
Bread, pasta, orange juice, a lot of yogurt, a lot of cheese, like just for protein, because I think my mom doesn't really know how to cook meat, like still. So there was just never a lot of meat in the house. So I wouldn't say that I ate like horribly. We didn't have packaged food. My mom was always she was always a little bit of a hippie, I think. So like we always had granola and whole grain things, and she had a yogurt maker, although I can't remember ever seeing her use it.
Oh.
But like there was always sort of more like kind of more natural stuff. We wouldn't buy junk food or soda or anything like that. And I never thought about it. Like it never occurred to me that I wasn't really eating well. And then when I first moved out and in my like late teens, early 20s, I probably ate what most people eat when they first move out, which is a lot of cereal and a lot of soup and a lot of pasta and like sandwiches and things like that. And again, I never really thought about what I was eating. I think when I first started was when I was living with someone, and he had grown up with a Seventh-day Adventist family, so they were very like they're vegetarian, and he was not, but there were always a lot of vegetables, and his family were amazing cooks. So I'd make dinner, and he'd be like, "Where are the vegetables?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So that was the first time I ever really thought about that maybe what I was cooking was not like the healthiest thing that I could possibly make. So I started to figure out how to cook vegetables and what to do. And I still didn't really ever buy packaged food. So that was like, I think I'm fortunate that was never part of the way I was wired.
Yeah.
So it's never occurred to me to buy a package of something. If I want like macaroni and cheese, I buy macaroni and I buy cheese. Like that would make sense in my brain rather than a box of something.
Yeah.
But like I still don't think I really was eating well, just because I think to eat well on some level you have to think about it. That it doesn't really happen very naturally for a lot of people. And I've never really seen an example of what that means to eat well. Because I didn't grow up in a family that liked to cook, and I didn't grow up in a family that ate vegetables. So I really needed to try to figure out, like, what did that actually mean?
Yeah.
To eat well. And, like, not only for me personally, but then just in a generic sense. Like, if someone's like, yeah, I eat pretty healthy, like, what does that really mean to them? Because I think that was also when I realized that healthy eating means very different things to different people.
Yeah. I had my own experience with that, as I grew up with very, like, standard American diet, like, lots of bread, lots of pasta, chicken nuggets, French fries. I don't remember there being a lot of vegetables, maybe just a bit of fruit, like, here and there, and lots of sugar, Pop-Tarts and ice cream and things. And my parents were like, they were kind of like 80s, they were 80s healthy, so we had a lot of low-fat things, but like low-fat and like tons of sugar. Like low-fat.
Low-fat everything.
Yeah, so low-fat frozen yogurt, but it'd have like 65 grams of sugar in a serving, that kind of stuff. And then when I moved out, and probably the period between like 18 and 23 or something like that, I was like in college and I was a vegetarian, but I still like did not know how to be healthy because vegetarian for me was like everything I would have normally eaten when I was a kid, but like a vegetarian version of it. So like
I was exactly the same. Like I would go, I went through like, I'm going to say, I think a lot of girls go through the high school vegetarian phase.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, they start to learn about animal rights and connect with their eating, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my god, I don't want to eat meat. So there was this whole group of girls in high school that went vegetarian about the same time, and we would go to McDonald's and we'd order a Big Mac with no meat. that was our vegetarian choice. Like it was totally awful. And now, like I was vegetarian and then vegan like as an adult, and I would never consider that to be an option. But somehow, like, teenage me thought it was awesome. I'm like, yeah, look at what I'm doing for the planet and for the animals. I'm not eating meat, but I'm having a Big Mac.
Yeah, I used to, when I was living in Greece, this was like 10 years ago, I was doing like a summer working at this like holistic yoga kind of center. It was right after I had graduated from college. And I used to go into the town and get like what I would call a vegetarian like gyro sandwich, you know, but it was just like a pita bread with mayonnaise and the French fries. And that was like my vegetarian sandwich.
That's the exact, like, that's the Greek version of the Big Mac with no meat. That's exactly what that is.
And needless to say, I was like 30 pounds heavier than I am right now. And like, face was breaking out. I never got my period. Like, everything was like irregular in my body, and just, you know, fatigued and brain fog and not doing so well in school, you know, a bit depressed here and there. But feeling like, you know, I'm doing my bit. Like, I'm a vegetarian. I'm healthy. Like, I'm eating, and I was eating so much soy. Oh, yeah. I like shudder to think that at the time, like how I hadn't gotten to the point where, like, my family, I just didn't know. Like, I didn't grow up having an adventurous diet. I had never had Indian food or Thai food or beans and rice even. Just, you know, so it took a while to, like, it was a conscious process of learning how, like, what is, like, just like what you were saying, like, what is a healthy diet? Not only does that look like, what does it look like for me, but just what does that look like in general? Like, what is healthy food? If it's not this, like, box of, I don't know, fried fake chicken nuggets, like, what should I be having instead?
Right.
And that took years, you know, to get to the place where, like, my diet is consisting mostly of vegetables and, you know, really good things for me. And then another part of it is, like, going one step further is, like, it took a few years to really learn and process, like, what was healthy diet. But then it took a while after that to realize, like, well, what's healthy for me? Because I went through a period of, like, juice fasting and detoxing and, you know, and doing the whole, like, trying raw foods and all this stuff. Only to find out really that, like, you know, my Ayurvedic dosha is a Vata. I'm, like, I've got long limbs, you know, and just, like, very tall and prone to anxiety. I have lots of, like, air energy going on. And raw, cold foods, like, are not actually good for me.
Yeah, me too. I've never been sicker than when I was on the raw food diet.
Yeah.
I should be clear that when I first started it, I was glowing, I was super healthy, everything felt great because of what I was not eating versus what I was eating. So that was short-lived. And then all of a sudden, it was like I had no energy. I think that I was probably basically narcoleptic, where I could fall asleep in a second. That if I closed my eyes somewhere, I'd be gone. I was so exhausted all the time.
Yeah.
And it was all, like, it's a raw food thing. It doesn't work well for me. I still have, like absolutely, I will still have, like, fresh fruit and salads and things like that, but they are not the dominant force of my diet by any stretch.
Right.
Yeah, because that just, that's not good for my body. Where some people, like you see, they eat salad all day, every day, and they've got a ton of energy, and they feel so good, and their skin looks good. And I am not that person. I look like I've been kept in the basement for 4 weeks. Like, no sun, no energy, no vitality at all.
Yeah, I'm the same, and yeah, it's like there's still a load of learning. Even now, I feel like with my diet, there's still a load of learning. But yeah, I had to come to a point where I started to recognize like what actually feels good in my body, because I'm reading all the blogs, I'm following all the books and stuff, and it seems like, okay, juice fasting and raw diets and stuff, and this is great. You know, you cleanse, it's natural. And I actually feel better when I have like soups and stews and heavy foods and a lot of fat. Like I feel good in my body with like my brain feels good. Like I need like it's almost like I have to balance out that like really airy energy with like heavy warmth to ground me down. So I'm better with like porridge in the morning and like a stew, a big hearty stew for dinner at night. And some, like, I don't completely not eat raw foods. Like you said, you know, I have like salads and I love raw vegetables, I love fruit, but it's not the dominant part of my day. And actually, I just kind of gravitate more towards heaviness in my food. Even if it's like, I don't know, just wanting some like whole milk, just something that will kind of like bring me back down to earth in a way.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's so grounding to have foods that are earthy, basically.
So what would you, like, how would you describe your diet now? And, well, two questions. How would you describe your diet now? And are there some foods or maybe even a realization that you felt was really, like, transformative in your diet, especially when it comes to, like, your health and wellness?
So I guess, the transformative realization was that every single health issue, nutritional issue can be solved by eating more vegetables. Period. That whether or not, like, they can be cooked, they can be raw, they can be, obviously there's like certain micro adjustments to make within the vegetable world. Like some people with thyroid issues need to be careful of cruciferous vegetables, things like broccoli, cauliflower, kale. But generally, like, if you are eating mostly vegetables in your diet, that is healthy. Full stop, that is healthy. And then add whatever else you want to add. So if you choose to eat grains, eat grains. If you choose to eat meat, eat meat. If you choose eggs, then have eggs, or dairy, or whatever else it is. But that was like the huge shocker for me. That, and I use this with my clients as well all the time, and even with my partner and anyone who ever asks, like, so what do I do to eat healthy? And I'm like, look down at your plate, and if half of your plate is vegetables, then you're probably doing okay. Like, and if it's not, then work your way up to that. Yeah. And then from there, it's a jumping off point and making a lot of adjustments and things like that. But really, like, that's a universal. Absolutely, it's a universal. So in my diet now, through my life, I've gone through vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, high protein, low protein, high carb, low carb. Like, yeah, me too. High fat, all of the, like, everything. So now I would say I eat mostly plants. I sometimes eat meat, although not that often. Partly because it just doesn't feel the most amazing in my body right now, but also partly because, like, there's a lot of, even if you're buying organic meat and, you know, your farmer and all of that good stuff that really isn't ideal in a meat-eating world, animals still have hormones in them because they're living beings. Yeah. So then, as a human consuming another living being, organic, not organic, it doesn't matter. There's still hormones in that. So just because my hormonal system is pretty sensitive, I find that I can stay balanced to the best if I limit the amount of animal food that I eat.
Mm. What do you think are some kind of dietary hacks that help with hormonal balance? Just because I know that's a thing that a lot of people, a lot of women struggle with.
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge issue for so many people, and it's an underlying issue for a lot of people. Like my clients, ultimately, I'm working with them. I know I'm working with them because they have hormonal imbalance.
Yeah.
They think I'm working with them because they need to lose weight.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Or because they want to clear up their skin, or
Mm-hmm.
because their blood sugar is weird, and all of this stuff, or they have cravings all the time. All of that stuff is hormone stuff. So, like, some of the easiest things that they can do is, I'm going to go back to my vegetable thing. Like, eat a lot of vegetables. I think if you're eating meat, have organic meat and try to limit it to like maybe half the week eat meatless and have legumes and lentils and other good kind of hearty grounding foods that are not from an animal.
Yeah.
But even as far as how you prepare and store your food, just watch out for things that are in metal cans because the lining of the cans has hormone disruptors in it. If you're drinking a bottle of water, maybe you try to find something that's glass instead of plastic. Store your food in glass instead of plastic, stuff like that, because that's actually it's one of those things that you don't think makes a big difference, but I've seen people go from like hanging on to the last 5 or 10 pounds that they feel that they want to lose, and then they remove all the plastic Tupperware containers from their kitchen, and then all of a sudden, like within 2 or 3 weeks, those 5 pounds disappear.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like,
yeah.
It blows their mind. It still blows my mind because I'm like, really? Like that's the impact
Yeah.
of putting your stuff in plastic, but it really does something to your system. And I mean, that's like changing the containers you use is not a huge dietary shift. Like keep eating what you're eating. Just use a different container. But even as far as vegetables, like if you're not like, yes, organic is best, and yes, it's great for the planet, and it's great for the people that are working in farming and agriculture, and there's all sorts of different bigger reasons. But at the end of the day, for people who are cost conscious or don't have access, the solution is not buy a box of something that says it's organic versus buying a vegetable.
Right.
That buying like whole foods is always the best option, because even hormonally, from a hormonal perspective, your body recognizes whole foods the best.
Yeah.
So something's already been broken down and processed or disassembled and reassembled into a different kind of food product. It takes your body a minute to kind of figure out what's going on. Whereas with the whole food, like we've been around for thousands of years, we kind of understand what to do with a carrot.
Right. The body's evolved to recognize like this is a carrot. This is, these are the nutrients that comes from a carrot. So different than, like you said, if it's been like taken apart, processed, put back together into your like organic cracker that has carrot, some carrot flakes in it or something like that.
Right. Your body, no matter what, like your body doesn't respond in the same way. And it's the same way that, like, we've evolved so that, like, out of all of the different foods that we eat, like, there's certain things that trigger kind of an off switch in our body that tell us we've had enough. So fat is one of those things. For example, when you eat fat is actually kind of the only thing that we eat where our body has a switch that's like, you are full, you are satisfied, you have had enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a question of filling up your stomach. It's not that. It's that actually as a macronutrient, your body is finished. So fat will shut off your hunger mechanism. Whereas fructose, which is fruit sugar, has zero off switch because like, if you think about eating seasonally, eating whole foods, fruit is not plentiful. It doesn't have a really long growing season. It's available for kind of a short time. And then it becomes too ripe and it's done. So our bodies are designed that we need to consume that when we see it, because we're not going to have it, like, possibly, we're not going to have it ever again.
Yeah.
And the reality is it'll be like a year from now before blueberries are ripe again, or strawberries or whatever. But our bodies are wired to see that and to eat that and to consume as many calories as we possibly can without ever having an off switch. So I find that stuff, like, that's just fascinating to me, but that affects your hormones. That when you're eating, if you're eating a ton of fruit, just to understand that it does stuff to your blood sugar, but also if you're eating the whole fruit versus drinking a gallon of juice, what is the implication of having no off switch? Because if you're eating the whole fruit, you have fiber and all the other stuff where, like, your stomach's going to tell you you've had enough.
Yeah.
Where your mouth is just like, I'm tired of chewing. I don't want to chew anymore. But if you're having, if you're having 1 or 2 gallons of juice, or if you're having, and not necessarily fresh cold pressed juice, although, I mean, that's a thing as well, but if you're just having, like, orange juice from the store, or like soda that has a lot of fructose in it, with high fructose corn syrup and just different kinds of sugar and things like that, your body is programmed to continue to want that.
Yeah.
And then that impacts your blood sugar, which, that affects your insulin. And then once you start to trigger one hormone, your system is so closely connected that your entire hormonal system starts to get imbalanced. So before long, you end up with all kinds of other things that really stem from the fact that there's one problem that's tipping the scales.
This is so timely right now to have this conversation, because I'm actually reading, do you know Woman Code?
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
So I'm actually rereading it because I read it a while ago, and I wasn't, for whatever reason, I can't remember where I was. It may have been even when I was living in the van, and really just, our van was like a custom van. We didn't have a camper van, so I was totally at the mercy of what I could eat on the road. I didn't have a kitchen. It was like the worst for me. The worst probably period of eating in my entire life, because I was just eating like what I could get on the road. So I think I read that book while I was either in the van or around the van, so I couldn't really put it into practice. But I'm actually rereading it right now, and I'm just about to put all of these like dietary suggestions into practice, and just for a month or two try out the weekly like a sort of weekly like eating plan that will support the hormones, and the hormone fluctuation, because I'm really wanting to support my hormones and my menstrual flow, but also really support my blood sugar and my adrenal glands, and make sure that I'm not like burning out, and just using functional food as medicine for all of these things.
Yeah, and it's amazing how, like, once that door is open to you, the door of the possibility that you can use food to correct things that are misaligned in your body.
Yeah.
It really is amazing how that, like, it's a whole new world out there. And there's all this stuff that you can do and all these changes that you can make, and you realize that it's not unachievable for the average person. It's totally within the realm of anybody to reclaim their health. Because all it is food, and every single person eats.
Yeah, I really agree with that. It's perfect. So last month I was reading a book called The Optimized Woman, and I loved it. It's all about like going through every day of the menstrual cycle, and just like where your optimal strengths lie in that day, and things that you should avoid, so you said you're a planner. I'm definitely a planner myself, and it's kind of using your menstrual cycle to plan out your month ahead, to like to have activities that fit in with where you are optimally during that time. For instance, like, so she says the first, after you get your period and you're in maybe your day like 5 or 6, of your cycle, you start to move into this place where it's like from post menstruation to pre ovulation. You're in this window that like it's like nature gives you this little gift of like independence, because you're not menstruating, so you're not like reflective and turning inward, but you're also not like, your body's not trying to get pregnant, and you can't get pregnant. So there's this like window of a few days where you're like super highly productive, loads of energy. And for once, it's not really like focused outward. It's kind of focused inward to get like loads of stuff done for yourself, So I found, just by reading that book, I noticed I just started charting throughout the month like where I was. When I was in that dynamic phase, I was getting 2-3 times more stuff done for my business and my personal life. Like, I probably got more done in those 4 days than I have for the rest of the month. Like, I was just like on fire. But because I had read it beforehand, I was like primed to give myself the space to say, right, I'm like not doing social things. I'm just going to get this work done. And then you move into the expressive phase, which is around ovulation. And that's when your energy turns outward and you want like more social interaction. You're very persuasive. Like, people respond really well to you at that point, and that's all like, there's all research to back up that kind of stuff, about people finding you more attractive when you're ovulating. You're more likely to get a raise. You're more likely to be able to negotiate the things that you want when you're in or around your ovulation. So that's
that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's the expressive phase. And you kind of put, like, if you were to plan your month, that's when you would be scheduling like nights out with your friends, negotiating a raise with your boss, having like a deep conversation with a family member, like something you've been meaning to say. She's like, wait until you get to this point, because your hormones will back you up on it. They're not going to betray you. Like, you will be primed to be able to have a better conversation. Like, that's when you should be like selling your new course or doing a webinar, like something that puts you out there. So for me, I scheduled a lot of these interviews during my expressive phase, because I believe that that's the point when I would be more capable of having conversations and I'd be aligned with it, And then you move on to the creative phase, which is also like your kind of PMS phase. And she said something that I loved, because I know this is so true for me. She said a lot of women, when they're in this creative or PMS phase and they're kind of coming up to the point where they're about to get their period, have like this obsessive desire to like clean and organize, and just like, that's when I'm like, oh my God, that fucking like junk drawer with all this stuff, like I have to do it right. I don't care that it's 3 a.m, like I have to reorganize this right now.
Yes.
And she said that comes from like, not only is it like hormonal, but it's an expression of this creative energy that you have in this time to like to just make with your hands and move things around with your hands. But a lot of women don't have that outlet where you wouldn't you feel that energy and you wouldn't necessarily say like, I'm going to go like make a clay pot, or I'm going to paint, or I'm going to like, I don't know, get the wood chopper and just like, do some like wood chopping. And so we turn it to like obsessively like cleaning things around the house, because that's the most available thing around to kind of get that energy out. So if you can, not that it's wrong to go around cleaning your house for sure, but like if you're aware of it, then you can start to like, it's all about prepping before you get to that phase. So you have things around. She calls them like 2-minute creative bursts. I didn't use these, but I'll try them next month. Just like setting up projects around you that are easy to get into, where you can create something for like 2 to 5 minutes. Especially when you feel that like, I gotta do something, that like that bursting energy. So you just have some projects around you. And then
That's
finally,
a smart idea.
yeah, and then finally you get to the reflective phase, which starts just about when you get your period, and it runs for, a few days. And that is all about turning inward, finding comfort with yourself. And in terms of optimizing your schedule, it's about clearing the decks, like rescheduling as many things as I say rescheduling for myself because I have an irregular period, so I don't know when it's going to come usually. I can kind of sense the signs in my body, so I have a good idea, but like sometimes it's 25. This month it was 25, last month it was 35. Sometimes it skips, whole months at a time. So I think if you have a regular period, this would be a much easier process because you could say, all right, I know this is when I'm going to have my period, so I'm going to reschedule or not plan anything around these 3 days so I have I can offer myself as much self-care as possible and sanctuary too. I love the idea of that book. So I did it for a month and I found that it was pretty much spot on for every day, like what I was feeling, what were both what I would perceive as strengths for the day and also challenges that I was working with for the day too. And then I'm rereading Woman Code because now that it's month 2, I'm ready to add functional foods and even exercising mindfully throughout the month. So if I can have everything cycling along with where I'm at, I just feel like bring myself into an optimal state of health and wellness and fulfillment in all aspects, all aspects of life and work as well.
Yeah, there's definitely the power of using your own body and your own hormonal cycle to fuel the things you do within the month. It's huge because then you're not trying to fight against what you naturally want and you're not trying to force something that isn't already there, that you really are using the energy you already have and you're using it to support all the activities that you're doing. I've never read The Optimized Woman, but I definitely made a note that I need to get on that because I like that it is really supporting that.
Yeah.
And it has it all in one place because there's definitely, you hear it phrased in different ways, but I like that The Optimized Woman is actually saying, this is how you feel, this is what's happening in your body, so this is how you should harness that energy. That's the step that I think is missing from a lot of other books.
Yeah, it makes it good. And then, contrary, what I feel like is missing from The Optimized Woman is it doesn't actually tell me a lot about the hormones. And that's what I really appreciate. I've got a very scientific mind. I like to know what's going on under the hood, and I always have been really interested in that. And so if I have a book that's I want to know about my luteinizing hormones and my follicle stimulating hormones, and I chart my cervical mucus. I'm not trying to get pregnant. I just want to know where's my cervix? What's it doing? What's my mucus looking like? And I don't actually just I don't sit down and write it down every day. I probably would if I was trying to get pregnant, but I just do it for myself, just observing it's egg white and stretchy. I must be ovulating soon.
Yeah, well, so many people are so disconnected from their bodies that even just to have that awareness is so key.
Yeah. And I can actually remember, it's interesting how talking about this because it just brought up a memory. It's taken me, I'm 32 now, and it's taken me all this time to get to a place where there is a resource that will tell me how that will show me a map of how I might be feeling throughout the month and what things to support my body, because I can actually remember, I don't know how old I was, but do you remember Teen Magazine?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, so I had never I wish I would have saved this edition because I was never able to find it again, but I just remember, this is even before I got my period, reading Teen Magazine, and they did this section about getting your period, and it broke it up into 4 separate sections, and it told you, just like this book that I'm reading. It wasn't really in depth, it was more magazine, like just a blurb, but it said, I remember it saying things like, the third week, you may have PMS and you might find that your dreams are more vivid. It said things like that, and that was the first time I ever knew that there was, I don't know, that there was a pattern, this kind of cyclical pattern, that it wasn't just about getting your period and then waiting a month and then getting your period again, that there were strengths and things happening. And it's so surprising to me that it wasn't in Sassy magazine or anything. This was just teen magazine, regular old teen. And I absorbed it, and I just, from that point on, I just wanted more information about that. And it actually took me most of my adult life to have a compelling resource that went through every stage. And that's why I'm like super excited to find these resources now, because I've been looking for them for a long time.
Yeah, to have like an understanding of what's going on in your body is so significant, and I feel like you totally hit on it, that it hinges, or it's like the foundation of everything else that happens.
Yeah.
And this is one reason that like in my practice I'm so passionate about hormones. And as much as sometimes I talk about them with clients, sometimes I don't. It sort of depends where they are in their own journey. But ultimately, like listening to what your body has to say and then being able to support that and set your body up to actually speak clearly are things that like people don't learn how to do that on their own.
Yeah.
They do need resources. And whether that's, I'm obviously a little bit biased, and I think that working with a coach or a nutritionist or a practitioner is so, so key. But even if the place where you're at in your life is that you are going to go and pick up a book, or going to go to the library, or you're going to go online and seek out some resources, just to have an understanding of not only like the woo-woo stuff behind it, because that's important and resonates with a lot of people, but also to get that there is science that's behind that as well.
Yeah.
So as much as it's very easy for people to roll their eyes at, the moon phase and the moon cycles and all those things. Well, first of all, there's obviously something powerful enough about the moon that it affects all of the liquid on the planet.
Right.
Every time it rotates. So, like, that's something where people are like, well, the moon doesn't do anything. Well, think about the tide, right? Like, it does something.
Yeah. Yeah. We have tangible results here on Earth.
Right. And the human body is made of, depending who you ask, about 70% water.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the moon is affecting the oceans and all the water in the world. And people are made of 70% water. So think about...
And our brains are like even more than 70%, I think. It's like, our brains are like almost all water.
Yeah, they're basically like jelly.
Yeah.
So think about that maybe the moon is affecting our bodies as well in a similar way. But then, I like that. Something about that really appeals to me. But I'm similar to you in that I like to know the science behind it. I like to know the tangible stuff, as well as the more abstract. So even if the moon thing doesn't click with you, there are actual books like Optimized Woman or charts online or whatever that show that your body has a cycle as well. That it's not. I like how you said you don't just get your period 1 month and then it goes away and then it comes back the next month. Like there's things that are happening in between that it really is.
And subtle changes that are happening every single day. Like, I think that's what I've liked about the Optimized Woman, because I had learned more about what was happening week to week. But this actually goes through like day to day. It doesn't talk necessarily about the hormonal changes from day to day, but just these subtle changes, like as just that recognition that like as a woman from day to day, you're not the same person that you were the day before.
Right. That's and you could important message, I think, to tell people like it's okay for you to change because it's supposed to happen.
Without judgment, and also, how that manifests in relationships too. Like, I definitely have had conversations with my current partner and partners in the past of just like, oh, well, I said that to you and you laughed, but then like but now, 2 weeks ago I told you that and you laughed, and now I'm saying it to you and you're like pissed off and you don't want to talk to me anymore. And it's just like, yes, that's what it is to be a woman. Like, you could tell me the same thing like 4 times in a month, and I probably will react differently every single time, because that's just like, that's how it is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying hard to make sure it's a consistent reaction, but actually, I am different. Like, I'm different every part of the month.
Yeah, and we're all continuously evolving beings, and women tend to have a bit more sensitivity to this than men, just because we have a cycle that happens, give or take, every month. So there's something that you can actually point to and say, yes, okay, day 1, day 7, day 20, day whatever. Men's cycles they're a lot more subtle, they're longer, they're different. But still, men and women, like, our cells are changing, our cells are being replaced, our cells are dying, like, cells are being created, like, there's all of this stuff that's happening. So no one is ever the same from one day to the next, which is a little bit weird sometimes to think about. And I think that some people are like, oh, well, that makes it hard, because then the thing that works for me today isn't necessarily going to be successful tomorrow or next week, which is true. But I think it also really opens up a world of possibility for people who start to feel like they're stuck and start to feel like they can't change, and they're doomed to have irregular periods forever, or they're doomed to be 20 pounds overweight forever. And I mean, the great news is your cells regenerate all the time.
Yeah.
So you actually have a brand new body, brand new blood, brand new everything. So there is no reason that you need to stay stuck where you are. There's no reason that you are not capable of changing to the degree that you want to change. If you're ready to take action for that, like, your body is primed for things to be different. Your body's primed for transformation and for transition.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah. Even stepping outside of just like the realm of food and more just all encompassing wellness, are there any like books or resources or techniques that you would recommend to the people listening that could be that were either really transformational for you or you think could be transformational for them?
I think one of the biggest things that I've done it totally changed everything is actually giving myself permission to take care of myself.
Yes. Yeah.
And to take time for myself. And some people do that, and it's actually a formal meditation, or they set up time for self-care. I know some people have a very specific self-care routine, either in the morning or at night, because those are the easiest times to incorporate that usually. But I think any place that you can help yourself find some ease, and just, rather than self-care, I heard someone use the term self-compassion, and that totally resonated with me, because for me, self-care felt a little bit frivolous. It felt a little bit like getting your makeup done or getting a massage.
Like, not all that necessary, but nice, just the same, though.
Exactly. Where I think when I heard it referred to as self-compassion, that was when I was actually able to integrate it into my day, because actually taking time, and part of this goes back to tuning into your body and noticing what it is that your body needs and your body wants, and maybe you want to be a little bit more like internally focused one day, and maybe one day you want to go out and go meet a bunch of new people and talk to strangers and try new food and do all those things. But you can't possibly notice that if you're not even taking the time to tune in to your own body. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of books that have been written about that, about self-care, and some of them are some of them I think are a little bit more spiritually minded, and I think some of them are a little bit more, I guess, scientifically minded, where they're talking about, what is the actual implication of like meditation, for example, on your neurology and what's happening with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are just saying, like, take some time and, like, even putting lotion on your body after a shower can be self-care.
Yeah.
If your intention is that is what it means. That you're taking some time for yourself. You're shutting the door, that you're being by yourself. So that for me, I think is like, that was key. And I know I am far from a master of self-care. I definitely find that it's the first thing that slips off my schedule when I get very busy.
Me too.
Yeah, because it's very easy to not be accountable to yourself.
Yep.
But then a lot of other things slip as well, because really what you're doing is you're saying that you're not important and that your goals are not important, and that you don't need to maintain what's going on. And I hear the car analogy all the time where people say, oh, like if you don't change the oil in your car and you don't wash your car regularly and fill your car with gas, then you can't expect it to run properly. And sometimes when it gets busy, you just think, oh, yeah, but it's fine. It's fine. Just keep going.
Oh, man. That could not be a more perfect analogy for how I have treated all of my cars. Oil change? No, I'll just let it go another 3 months and then just worry about it later.
The light's on, but it seems to be still running, so it's gonna be okay.
Yep. Yeah, totally. And that's a very similar way that I manage my own self-care too. I was really excited about what you said about just changing the name. I don't think self-compassion is the name that would make me feel compelled to do it every day. But it just made me think, like, I need to come up with a new term for this, because self-care often feels to me like I probably do more self-care than the average person does, but I don't think I'm doing nearly enough to support my mental functioning, like my anxiety and stress levels, my hormones. So I'm thinking, like, I have to come to a place of some kind of word or phrase that describes, like, this is essential. Like, this is it, Mm-hmm.
I definitely also learned that there's so many different things that work for different people, and there's different things that will look different for you on different days. Like, some days, self-compassion or self-care for me is hitting snooze 3 times. Because, like, just take it easy with your day. Don't be so stressed. Some days, self-compassion is get out of bed and shower, because, like, you're going to do some amazing things in the world. So set yourself up to actually get out of bed and not be rushed and take some time. So it looks different all the time, but at the end of the day, all it is, it's tuning into yourself, and it's giving yourself the acknowledgement and the permission to be the most important thing in your world, which you should always be. And it's not selfish, and it's not frivolous, even though sometimes it seems like it. It's necessary.
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually a really, really wonderful point to end on, the necessary practice of self-care. Yeah, Jessica, it's been awesome talking with you. Awesome.
It's been amazing talking to you too. I'm really, really glad that we connected.
Yeah, me too.